Coming up on Locked On NBA Daily. Jayson Tatum made his return to the Celtics over the weekend. Have all of our questions about his return been answered already? Meanwhile, the Pistons have lost 4 in a row, and some people are ready to hit the panic button. And do we have a new hottest team in the East? Locked On NBA Daily starts now.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NBA Daily, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. However you're tuning in on YouTube or on your podcast app, thanks for making us your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we're talking about Jayson Tatum's big weekend, the Pistons facing their toughest stretch of the season, and our weekend winners and losers. We're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast, senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt?
Someone down at 7 o'clock last night. I feel like a new person. Like I've returned. I returned from the dead. I love when the days get longer. It's absolutely, we're exiting winter. The playoffs are in a month. Everything is great.
From the Locked On Bulls podcast, he's a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Haize.
Listen, the weather's starting to change, starting to get warmer. NFL free agency is going on. This is my favorite time of year.
Bye-bye, Tua Tagovailoa. Big news out of Miami.
How do you feel about that, Wes?
A weird way for what was the most exciting era in Miami Dolphins football for a long time to just sort of fizzle out. Just a strange way for it to end. But let's start with the big news in the NBA from over the weekend. Jayson Tatum made his return to help the Celtics to a pair of wins over the weekend. I think everybody would agree that he looked great, considering that he's been off for 10 months since recovering from the Achilles tear. Here's more from Locked On Celtics.
He's not 100%. He was never going to be 100% without playing some games and getting those under his belt. But he is closer to looking like Jayson Tatum than I expected him to. I thought this was going to be a much longer, a much more obvious kind of ramp up. Like, I thought we were going to see, okay, Tatum is a little bit more demonstrative of needing some time off. The way they handle it, the way they put this plan together, this has been a great return for Tatum. Just in these 2 games, I think he's shown enough to say, like, okay, this is going to be Jayson Tatum is back.
So Jayson Tatum is back. He looks back. Matt, the Celtics won a couple of games with him back. What stood out to you?
I mean, I thought he looked phenomenal. They looked terrific. I think one of the things is just like Tatum is such a complete player in regards to, there are so many things that he can do. And when you break down his game individually, it's like, does he have good handle? Yes. Does he have strong drives? Yes. Does he have good footwork? Yes. Does he have good defensive principles? Yes. Like, he is just like a really well-rounded player, and he gets killed a lot, I think, because he's not exceptional. He's not elite level in almost anything. And I'm sure Celtics fans will throw something at me that he's elite at, but in general, I think the best value of him is just like how good of an all-around basketball player he is, where it's like, if you give him a lane, he's going to drive and score. And if you give him a jump shot, he's going to make it a decent amount of time. And like, he's just got so much that he brings to the table. I think it's phenomenal. My honestly biggest thing, because Tatum had a experimental different type of surgery and treatment for this Achilles. Like, this could be a game changer for the entire league, for sports in general, but particularly in the NBA, where Achilles may not have to be the devastating setback and really permanent downshift in your career if Tatum's able to show this. Now, it's going to be different in 10 days. I understand that everyone's like, you said that you were going to struggle out of the gate. Now, I thought they struggled more than they have, but it's been 2 games. Like, when he starts playing every other day and the exhaustion kicks in on top of the injury recovery, that's the hard part. But you could not have asked for a better start for his return than what they've gotten.
Haize, what about you?
Yeah, I mean it's about as best, like man said, about as best as a return as you can expect at this point in time. He looked better than I've expected, and when we had this conversation before, I said kind of let his return and how he plays in that return really kind of dictate what the expectations are. And I tell you what, it's hard to not let expectations get a little bit crazy right now because he looks so good. He looks, I would say probably what 85-90% of Jayson Tatum it looks like out there.
It's pretty surprising how good he looks. I'm going to be honest. Matt, I kind of had the same takeaway as you. I think he's going to be the new so-and-so came back in 10 months guy, right? It was Kevin Durant when we talked about Kevin Durant came back and he averaged 27 points per game and played 35, whatever it was. Adrian Peterson is that guy in the NFL for ACLs, has been for years, right? I think Jayson Tatum is about to become the example guy. That every time your star player who's under 30 goes down with an Achilles, hopefully it doesn't happen much more, but if and when it does happen, those fan bases are going to be like, well, Tatum came back in 10 months and looked every bit as good as he was. Tatum's about to be the new example guy. In terms of how good he looks and how good the Celtics look, they beat the Mavericks their first, like, whatever. The Mavericks are tanking. That's whatever it is. Then they beat the Cavaliers, who have been playing really well lately, on Sunday. Matt, you're talking like we're talking about maybe new expectations for the Celtics team. What do you think about the Celtics now as a whole with Tatum back? Do you think any differently of them than you did before?
With the caveat that I think that whoever's the favorite probably doesn't win at this point in the year. I think they should be the East favorites. I think they are the favorites to come out of the East. I think they're the best team. I think when you look at how they matched up with the Knicks, I think when you look at, we'll talk about Detroit next segment. When you look at the entire thing, it is so incredible to me how Joe Mazzulla has not only, like, it's one thing to get your team to kind of find ways to sneak out wins. That's not what's happened with Boston. They have not snuck out wins. They have not pieced this together. They are not overperforming. If anything, they should have a better record than they do based off of the underlying stuff. They have Cade is an awesome defender. They started the year, and I talked to Corrales in preseason and was like, "What's the thing?" And he's like, "Defense." He's like, "They're going to be absolutely horrible defensively." They're top 10. This is a top 10 defense. What? How? It is incredible the job Joe Mazzulla has done. As much as I love what Jordan Ott has done in Phoenix, even I have been converted. It's Joe Mazzulla for Coach of the Year. I honestly think that this team can make the NBA Finals. I don't think they can win it, but I do think they can come out of the East 100%. Haize.
Yeah, they're a well-coached team. They're solid on both sides of the ball. You have a player like Jayson Tatum returning. We'll see what happens with Nikola Vucevic there, but there's no doubt that this team can come out of the Eastern Conference. Like, I had my doubts coming into the season if they'd be able to consistently play at that level, but they've shown, and they showed that without Jayson Tatum. You now get Jayson Tatum back with a month to ramp up before the playoffs. Yeah, this team's going to be really dangerous come the playoffs. Really, really dangerous.
He's already playing 25, 27 minutes per game. I mean, it's a little bit of a minutes restriction. They're being a little bit careful. I know the shooting percentage isn't great in these first two games back, but watching these games, I mean, he's moving well. He's moving side to side. He has had a couple of dunk attempts. One that was a little iffy the first against Dallas, but in the second half against the Mavericks, and then basically that entire game against the Cavs, I'm floored by how good he looks. I mean, I'm honestly shocked. And yeah, obviously.
And
go ahead.
To that point, our job is to be critical when it's due. I have so much respect for the fact that Jayson Tatum attacked his rehab this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to act like if you don't come back early that it's a failing, because I don't think it is. The hardest part that players have said of recovery is the mental part. It's that you get into those dog days where it's like you can't really do much. You can do some, but not a lot. You start off and like you're attacking every day and you're trying to get, you get back on your feet and you get the boot off or whatever. And then it slows down and becomes a real grind and you're away from the game that you love. And Tatum, for him to have attacked his rehab the way that he has, for him to have done what he's accomplished, for him to come back and look like this, it is an absolute testament to his work ethic and how good he is as a player.
It reminds me of a completely different injury, but same as like it was devastating at that time. It reminds me of the way Adrian Peterson returned from his ACL and tear. Yeah. He came back and immediately ran for over 2,000 yards immediately. So
it's part of Tatum's story, which we know he is very cognizant of, right? He's got an NBA struggle story now. Good for Jayson Tatum. I'm not trying to be petty. Maybe a little bit. Meanwhile, the Pistons have lost 4 games in a row. We'll talk about whether or not it's cause for concern, who should be and who should be considered the favorites in the East after what has been obviously a very eventful weekend. Stay tuned. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Daily is brought to you by Quo. Spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, a text, or an opportunity. The part that I love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the entire conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. So make this the season that no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup. It makes every dunk, every assist, and every big play that much more exciting. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports picks app, and it's super simple to play. Here's what I like about using Prize Picks. It's easy. You can just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you cash in. You can build lineups across tons of sports: basketball, baseball, hockey, college hoops, soccer, golf, and a whole lot more. And one feature that I really like is the early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you could have the option to cash out winnings before the game even finishes. It's a really fun way to test your sports knowledge and stay locked in on the action. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL or LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to Locked On NBA Daily, the best way to support the show. Subscribe on YouTube. We are Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you get your podcasts. Let's go to the negative story in the Eastern Conference from the weekend. Our favorite team, fellas, the Detroit Pistons. They have lost 4 games now in a row. It's their biggest stumble all season. Over at Locked On Pistons, Kukalil is asking if it's time to hit the panic button. Let's play the clip.
It's time to hit the panic button. It's getting close. For me, it's getting close. Now, I am fully aware for a lot of people, there's a good section of the fan base that no matter what really happens this year, that they weren't expecting too much anyways this year. So unless they just completely lost every game the rest of the season, this is going to be a successful season for them, for those fans, no matter what. And if that's the case, I'm not discussing them. But for someone like myself, and for someone like any of the other fans that had any kind of expectations, even if it's not just championship expectations, any kind of expectations for this team in the playoffs, I'm getting close to hitting the panic button. And
Haize, Koo's talking about panic button after a 4-game losing skid in March. What do you think of this take? What do you make of this losing streak?
I mean, it does suck. Detroit has been such a good team all this season, but you're going to go on a losing streak at some point. It happens to every team just about, and it's not a surprise that, well, let me not say it's not a surprise, but it's going to happen. What key is how they bounce back from it, how they prepare for the playoffs. It's still a damn good team. I still have them as a team that can legitimately make it out the East. Just some questions on, the fact that this is their first time. How will they overcome that storyline and the battles that come in the playoffs? But this was bound to happen. You're going to go on a losing streak at some point in time. You can't say that you're playing with house money. People didn't expect it and then complain when something like this happens. It's very, very minuscule compared to the success that they've had this season.
I get labeled as a contrarian a lot, which is fair. And the reason that I kind of take that approach is not that I'm trying to do it for clicks or attention, because trust me, if that was the tactic, I would be living in a much nicer home. But what actually it is that the NBA season has taught me that just you're never as good as or as bad as you look. Like you're always somewhere kind of a little bit lower than your high points and better than your low points. And then the Pistons aren't as bad as they've looked over the last 4 games, nor are they probably as good as they've looked over the entire course of the season. That's not to say that they haven't been great, because I think they have been. And I love the way that they play defense. There's 2 separate questions here. The first is this an indication that maybe they're starting to slide? And I think the answer is probably yeah, because they had hit such a high point. Like this team was what had the #1 record in the NBA. They passed the Thunder for a hot minute. That is too much. We know Detroit's not better than OKC. We have every piece of evidence that they're not better than OKC. So we knew they were going to play like probably a little bit worse, right? And that's the kind of pattern of this. I worry about the whole peaking too early thing. That's always been a concern of mine. I don't know how to manage it or what to do with it. Like, oh, play worse so we don't peak too early. That's dumb. But I do worry that, like, look, timing is important. You have to not play so great that you don't have any other gear you can get to. The other question, though, is the playoffs, right? They're going to be fine. Like, they're going to finish. Celtics are 3 games back. It's a little hairy. I think Pistons probably stabilize and still get the 1. The problem for me is just the offense. Okay, their defense has slid over this stretch. That's what's been a problem. But Asar Thompson's been out. Okay, Cade missed the other game. It's fine. The offense is a legitimate issue. They are not good enough at shooting. They are outside of the thresholds of what I have looked at historically over the last 10 years of how good you need to be from an effective field goal percentage standpoint. And if you like, that's a lot of words. They don't shoot good. Like, they don't shoot well enough. And you've got to be able to do better than that in order to make a deep run in the playoffs. I think Detroit is awesome. I love their story. I think it's been great to see this happen. I think their upside is still tremendous. But for this year, they don't have enough shooting for them to be able to make the kind of championship run that a number 1 seed you would expect capable of.
You had those questions anyway, right? Despite this 4-game losing streak. I do think, and you had your doubts about the Pistons. Maybe some other people didn't have as many doubts. I do think that we are starting to see why people aren't picking them, right? To your point, Matt, like this 4-game skid maybe just underscores some of the concerns that we've had about this Detroit Pistons team all season long. Now, look, these losses, you can write off of each of these individual losses, right? To Cleveland, they lose by 4 points in Cleveland. Okay, that's fair given the way that the Cavs have played since getting James Harden and everything. You got pantsed by San Antonio in San Antonio, but the Spurs are great and have been the NBA's best team since the start of February. The loss against Brooklyn is a tough one, but they didn't have Cade Cunningham in that one. And then they play on the second night of a back-to-back in Miami in the next game, but they got pantsed in that one too. So I'm not trying to excuse what the Pistons are doing here or this skid, but I'm with both of you guys. Like, they're not this bad, and I do think that maybe this, if anything, just reinforces the fact that they are a little bit vulnerable. What I do find interesting, though, after this weekend, Haize, so the Celtics beat the Cavs on Sunday. They get Tatum back. Matt already mentioned the record. Like, the Celtics are only 2.5 games back of the Pistons for the 1 seed. They could catch the Pistons for this 1 seed now with Tatum back. And the Pistons are going to be without Asar Thompson, by the way, for at least a little while more, according to JB Bickerstaff. Like, Celtics versus Pistons, based on what we've seen lately, I mean, are the Celtics back in terms of just being the favorites in the Eastern Conference? The Knicks looked bad against the Lakers on Sunday. The Celtics whooped the Cavs. The Celtics are the team that are riding high right now in the East.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are the favorite in the East. It's funny how we go through the majority of the season to get right back where we were last season. The Celtics are the favorite to come out the East.
I mean, look, styles make fights, though, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Knicks, Celtics lost to Knicks in the season series. Knicks have won the season series versus both Celtics and Cavaliers, right? And it's like, oh, but Tatum's back. Okay, but the Knicks also beat the Celtics last year. And a lot of Knicks fans I've talked to have actually had they're like, oh yeah, we've got the Celtics figured out. I'm like, I don't know about that, but I think they're live. I do think a lot of this is just going to come down to, styles make fights, right? If you told me that the Pistons got into a second round series with Cleveland and were able to just outmuscle and outpower and Cade reached another level, I'd be like, that all tracks. If you were like the Cavs shot the lights out and the Pistons offense just couldn't keep up, I'd be like, that tracks too. I do think a lot of this is just going to come down to like styles make fights in the playoffs. It's matchups. Everything is matchups, which is one of the reasons why I continue to kind of lean towards New York. I feel like the Knicks at least have such a floor for their performance that I'm less worried about them in certain contexts. With the Celtics, they can get 3-point happy, and that bit them last year. And with the Cavaliers, I don't trust them defensively. With the Pistons, I don't trust them offensively. The Knicks, and I understand if you're like, how can you trust the Knicks defensively? It's been about a month now of them playing really great defense. I don't care about the Sunday game. It's a matinee game after they beat the Nuggets by 40. Guess what? That's LA nightlife. That's who won that game. There is, I think, a higher floor for New York than the others. But I do think, look, we know for one thing for sure, Wes, would you agree with this? The East winner is going to be Detroit, Boston, New York, or Cleveland. I don't think we're having the 2023 Heat come out of the play-in tournament. I don't think we're going to have the 2025 Pacers come out of the 5 seed. Charlotte's interesting, but they lost to Phoenix last night. Don't think they're ready. I think the East winner is going to be one of those 4 teams. We can at least narrow it to those 4.
I think that's fair, and I think you could put those 4 teams up against the top 4 teams in the Western Conference and make a real argument that maybe the top of the East is wholly better than the top of the West when you kind of go 4 deep as opposed to maybe just the top 2 teams. I think those teams are all legitimately good and worthy of making the NBA Finals. At the risk of stepping on our next segment, though, there's some hot teams right now in the play-in mix that are going to at least try to make some noise in the playoffs and maybe upend one of these teams with an early shot at making the finals. We're going to talk about what might be the East's hottest team next. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night from early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. But there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay that you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, player props to match how you see the slate playing out, and then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. One of the odds I'm looking at lately, the Southeast Division winner, the Miami Heat, plus 115 odds to win the Southeast Division. The Orlando Magic are still the favorites. The Heat, who we're about to talk about here, have won 5 straight games, might be closing in on another division championship. Not that the division titles mean a lot, but for those odds, they could mean a lot to you. Go safe, go bold, ride the team that you've been following all season long. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 in sponsored job credits to help get your job the premium status that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Thanks for making Locked On NBA Daily your first listen every day. The Locked On Podcast Network has a show for every team. Check out Locked On Celtics and Locked On Pistons for more on today's top stories. It's Monday. We're going to end the show with weekend winners and losers. Haize, start with you.
I guess one of the weekend winners should be my Chicago Bulls, who actually won a game going into the weekend. So that's that. That always feels good for me to see the team actually win a game. But I'll say outside of that, it has to be Jayson Tatum, right? Like, that's it. That's the answer. Jayson Tatum and his return back to basketball and what he's done and how good he's looked, he has to be the winner of the weekend for me.
Matt?
Magic, probably a winner. I'm a little suspicious of it. Paolo Banchero's turned a corner. A little interesting there. This Eastern Conference play-in race I know we're going to talk about is really interesting and how it's kind of shaping up. Atlanta is another one. The other one I gotta say is, like, the Spurs' destruction of the Houston Rockets on Sunday was about as emphatic and definitive as you're going to find. Like, that was a game and then it was not. And I understand, like, Houston's going to be a loser here for me. I understand the Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams injury. I totally understand. Like, you lost your point guard that was going to set the table, and you lost the offensive rebounding advantage that you had. That was a huge part of their identity. But the vibes are awful for a team that is this good. And, like, Rockets fans have turned on Ime Udoka. I don't know where this goes, Wes. Like, they look like a promising team that was, like, going to be a force in the Western Conference over the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And now like we're reaching. Like I shared some tweets from Jackson Gatlin about how Alperen Şengün is playing, who both my co-hosts thought was an all-star this year, and like it is like it's a mess to the point where Wes texted back was like, would the Bucks even want Şengün in a Giannis trade? Holy crap.
Yeah.
It is a mess, but San Antonio demoralized them yesterday. I keep waiting for San Antonio to come back to the pack, and it just is not happening so far.
I do want to mention that we were right. Alperen Şengün was an all-star.
He was technically an all-star. He did.
I mean,
for the world team as an injury replacement.
It doesn't matter. He was an all-star.
Gross.
History will show. Haize, I do think this is interesting, though, because Houston was the hot young team, had all the good young players, the team that you would have taken. It was like, would you take Houston or Oklahoma City's roster for the next blah, blah, blah years? Like, we were kind of having that conversation. Now, just in Texas, would you take San Antonio, Dallas now with Cooper Flagg and another high draft pick probably coming up, or Houston? When you look at those three rosters in those three situations, which one would you take going forward? I mean, it's obviously San Antonio, but would Houston be at the bottom of the list, I guess, is the more interesting way to ask that question.
No, because I still think you said between San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. No, I'd still take Houston over Dallas, especially if because what they have is more fixable. They can go out and find a point guard. I think they'll be right back to where they need to be. Dallas has to actually build a team around Cooper Flagg. That's going to take a while.
My problem is like this is an internal conflict. It's clear that Ime Udoka doesn't like or trust Alperen Şengün or Reed Shepherd, and those are the two players that have the most upside and have the best value for this franchise. And like if they're not going to work out, this is one of the problems with the Kevin Durant trade, and they had to do the trade. They got a sweetheart of a deal, right? Mm-hmm. But this is one of the problems. I was worried about this at the time. You are now a KD team because you're just like, well, he's our best player. Like that's our best player. KD's 37.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in this trap where it's like, you got to win now because KD's your best player. So you better build around him. You can't do that because you've only got so much of a window. This is a bad situation for Houston to be in because it's basically, you have to just like, yeah, we'll be pretty good with KD and it'll be ugly and nasty and a lot of tension. And then maybe the other guys will develop and get better enough that we can win after. And KD's not going to be satisfied with that. It's rough. It's a bad situation in Houston.
I don't think it's as bad as you're letting on, Matt. Like they were a winning team before KD got there. They're like, yes, you have to play a certain way when you have KD. Anytime you add a player that gravity, I'm not lost to that point, but I don't think it's as bad off as you're letting on for them. Like their young players are still developing. Jabari is taking really good strides this season, so the young players are still taking steps.
I love Jabari, and I think he has just been in a bad situation. Rockets fans are out. Like they want Jabari Smith Jr. gone. They want him out of here. And I think the bigger thing here, Haize, is like you might be right, but that's going to require a coaching change. And if you have a coaching change, how does Kevin Durant respond to that? Because I think he wanted to play for Udoka. This is the dynamic that I'm trying to get at is the problem there, and I don't know how you untangle it.
I'm going to end with my winner here, and it's the Miami Heat, who started a 5-game win streak by beating these Houston Rockets that we're talking about right now. And as we were recording, news broke that they got a second-round draft pick from the Charlotte Hornets in order to help rectify the Terry Rozier situation. I've got my questions and my concerns about that. We could talk about that maybe later in the week if we get more information.
Or on Locked On Heat where it belongs.
Or there. But the Heat have won 5 games in a row. They are up to 7th place in the Eastern Conference in a virtual tie with the Orlando Magic. Now, Orlando has the tiebreaker over Miami, but the Heat have a chance now to climb to 6th, maybe even 5th, where they're only a game behind the Toronto Raptors. They're playing well. Bam Adebayo is averaging 22 and 10 over the last month plus. Tyler Hero is back, shooting 50% overall, 40% from 3. Looks like he has not missed a step. And, you know, they beat Brooklyn a couple times during this win streak, but also Houston. They beat Charlotte on Friday, the league's hottest team at the time, and then the team with the East best record in Detroit on Sunday, and they pantsed them. So right now, I think the Heat, you can make an argument, are the East hottest team right now, and that bodes well for a Heat team that does like to peak at this time of the year, Matt.
They have snuck into the top 10 in net rating. That to me is like huge. Like I pay attention to this kind of stuff. Like as a good example of this, they're better in point differential than the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
What? That's crazy. The East play. Here's the thing. This is since All-Star. Okay, Miami 7-2 plus 11, Atlanta 7-1 plus 12, Orlando 7-3 plus 10.9, Charlotte 6-4 plus 12. That race for the Southeast Division, because there is like only, I think, going to be maybe 2 spots, but I think 1 spot for all of these squads outside of the play-in tournament is going to be brutal. Philadelphia's got Tyrese Maxey's injury, and they've been playing terrible. Obviously, you don't know when Embiid's going to play. This is going to be fascinating to watch this last month of basketball in the Southeast Division between these 4 teams who are playing their best basketball.
Yes, it will. We'll see what happens. Miami and Orlando right now in a virtual tie for 6th, 7th place, and that could very well, it could just come down to that to determine who comes out of that play-in mix or has to avoid the play-in tournament altogether. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA Daily wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thank you to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA Daily.